Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Anuj Mehrotra, Dean for the Scheller College of Business here, and I am delighted, absolutely delighted to welcome you all to this episode of Tech Talks Business. So today, we have a distinct pleasure of really welcoming Jean Marie Richardson, and I'll give you 3 facts about her. 1, she's the founder and CEO of iFolio, and we'll learn more about iFolio today. She's a Georgia Tech alumna, and she is the member of the advisory board for the Scheller College of Business. So welcome.
Thank you. So super excited to be here, guys, and I'm going to have you clap one more time. I just want to say thank you for such an incredible event, and your whole team. It's so neat to be here with everybody. Let's give Dean a news.
Thank you very much. So Jean Marie, let's just start first by asking about you, about yourself. About iFolio. Give us a little bit about the sense of the company size, what it does, what its operations are, and what the client base is. Yeah. And in particular, congratulations. I just learned from you today that on Friday you signed a new lease for a new office. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yes, hot news, guys. Just Friday, I signed for our new space. We'll still be in the Salesforce Tower, but we're going to have 2.5 times more space. So I'm excited about that. So let me start describing myself. I have a little bit of deja vu being here at the alumni house. When I was a freshman on campus, I stayed in the illustrious Cloudman dorms, which are right across the street. So I used to jog in a path past the alumni house. So it's really special to be back here with you guys. Thank you for coming out. So iFolio is 8.5 years old, and we are a technology company. We're a marketing cloud. And so what we do is we help organizations grow with personalized digital marketing and analytics. And it is such an exciting space right now because since COVID, so much of what we do, how we do work, how we communicate is more digital and it's more advanced. And what's really exciting about iFolio is we've grown from starting in my basement, which was the very first office that we had, through the Atlanta Tech Village, and now we're in the Salesforce Tower. But today we power more than 5,000 clients across industries, and those include university clients, but also sports teams. I know a big topic at Avant-Garde is or Avant-South is sports. So some of our clients include like Madison Square Garden, the Texas Rangers, the MLB League, the New York Knicks, Georgia Tech Athletics, Clemson, Northeastern, so whole different types of clients. And what we help them do is connect, engage, and convert. So they can use the iFolio platform to easily develop cutting-edge, design-ready content that can be both published and pushed directly to fingertips at scale. And one of the things that we go really deep on is analytics. So it's incredibly important for companies to be able to have data analytics across their different communications. So we have 3 patents on that. And also collaboration. So I'll talk a little more about that later.
I think there are so many topics you touched, and I will probably have a question for each one of them to dig deeper into it. But I would have put Georgia Tech Athletics first in the list of clients that you talked about. But that's a different matter altogether.
We just had an incredible win this past weekend, so excited.
You mentioned you're a technology company, and there is a whole lot of digital transformation that's taking place. And this has been a theme even in the morning, from what I understand, of conversations. And last week, we had a consulting panel here, and we were discussing about perhaps there are some opinions on how generative AI is being overhyped. Maybe there is some aspect of it that we are over-investing in it? And are we over-investing in it? But more importantly, from your perspective, how are you seeing your operations change with this digital transformation? And in some sense, you are the leading edge at it because you are the technology company. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think as a technology company, first of all, personally, I love hype. So anything that we should get excited about, I like to know about it. When it comes to AI, AI has been around for a good bit of time, but it's exciting to see that people are starting to think about how they can use it to make work easier. So I don't have a lot of fears about AI replacing these people's jobs. I do think that we are already seeing ways, like for instance, when you are figuring out the content that you're going to send in an email, you can use AI and basically search, and it can provide to you examples and suggestions based on other content, email content or presentation content that's already out there. That is helpful. Now, you have to take it with a grain of salt because you just do. It's still got a long way to go. There's a couple of other things I'm really excited about, too, in terms of technology transformation. I think what I'm excited to really go deep in is how do cloud companies make it easier for us to collaborate? So we need to be able to send more personalized experiences, and that's really important, and that involves a lot of different content types. But collaboration is not an easy engineering problem to solve. So collaboration means you've got to be able to have distinct teams, distinct accounts, and have their own media libraries, their own content, and you've got to be able to support data synchronization and saving content to the back end in a way that no matter where they are, anywhere in the world, you can have teams building, editing, previewing, and sending content, and it makes it easier and more effective. But from an engineering perspective, it's not easy to do, and we spent a lot of cycles on it.
So Gen AI is certainly changing the storytelling kind of mechanism, so to speak. But what I'm more interested in hearing about is, even more interested in hearing about is, you're a technology company, you're a marketing company. What will that next creative shift look like?
Yes. So I think the biggest shift that we're already seeing is, if you think about it, 25 years ago, it was all about a 30-second television commercial. And before that, it was the newspaper. We're already to the point where you can have personalized content delivered directly to individuals. So a big shift was everything being available online. I know Vodafone saw a 50% increase in internet traffic during COVID. Now that is old news. We expect information about where we're going to go, what we're going to do. It's going to be available at our fingertips. The next big movement is personalized content. So when I think about personalized content, think about what you want to see customized to you before you're looking for it. So, and that can be a whole lot of things, like how can I connect with Scheller? Where should I go for the tailgate? When are the fall coats dropping? The types of things, if you have a dog, what's the latest dog vest? But content that is delivered to you based on your own preferences and delivered to you, and the whole point being it's more convenient. So you don't have to go looking for it. It's pushed to you, but you can determine the speed. And there's a lot of advancements around that.
Certainly, there's a lot of personalized comment coming to me, but I actually did search for the bottle of wine before they started bombarding me with all these bottles of wine from everywhere.
And now you have plenty of options.
I don't have a cellar, but I have a cellar full of wine as a consequence of that. But, does it mean really that marketing itself is becoming more competitive, more difficult? How are the legacy players adapting to something like this? Can they? And really, how do you emerge? You are using analytics in a heavy way, and analytics and Gen AI combination. How do you emerge as a leader in this space?
Yes. So first of all, you have to want to be a leader, because what we did even 10 years ago is being left behind. So, and what many organizations focused a lot on print even a decade ago. And so you're still going to have print, but you're going to need to transform so that you're able to have digital versions of print. And with digital versions, one of the benefits is that you can have more dynamic content. So you can have, for instance, something that used to be a flat chart can be animated chart. You can have more visualization, which keeps us engaged and excited. One of the things that we're seeing with the iFolio platform, so we specialize in personalized content. So take, for example, something that used to be a mailer. Now you can save the trees, and you can send digital content directly to people via email or text message. But our analytics show that what used to be an average of a 20% open rate, with personalization, you can achieve 70% open rate. And then engagement, which is important for conversions. So what is an industry average of 10 seconds, with personalization and dynamic content, and there's something that we're doing with Pearls that is really, really innovative, your engagement can go from 10 seconds to over 6 minutes and 30 seconds. I mean, it is more than 10x the type of result. So I think organizations that want to stay on the forefront, they're gonna need to lean in, and they're gonna need to determine, okay, across our communications, how do we need to digitally transform? And then what opportunities that traditionally were just bland communications can actually be subtle marketing opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I always thought analytics was fun, and there's a lot more to it, but how you said it just made it even more compelling for me. But you mentioned sports.
Yes.
And we have just introduced, we are just launching a new minor, interdisciplinary minor in sports and entertainment, and some of our students want to really learn about how analytics has changed the field of overall.
Yes.
And is this impact, like everything around is now being analyzed, whether it used to be a baseball was the analytics sport or the numbers of sport, now everything is, and marketing about it is as well.
Yes.
So has that been good for the athletes? Has that been difficult for the athletes? Can you share some examples, perhaps?
Yes, so I think, when analytics first came onto the scene for athletics and for sports, it was really mostly analyzing performance. So how fast does someone run? How high do they jump? That's how you usually think of analytics in the context of sports. What's really neat to see is how are organizations and sports brands enhancing the experience for people who are fans, people who are corporate members. So one thing that we see with the analytics, so a great example is, so we have this new innovative service. It's on the cutting edge, it's not brand new, we released it last year, but the Texas Rangers is a great example. So they needed to renew their book of business. So their book of business is $48 million a year, and so those customers are across a lot of different things. So that's tickets to the games, some have season tickets, some have single tickets, it's parking, it's suites. Their enterprise customers can sometimes have 20 different items that they can be renewed for on an annual basis. So the challenge there is if they have their current sales team just focus on renewals, it's great because they renew that book of business, but they won't go out and fill any empties that they have. So with the Pearls solution, each customer across $48 million book of business received personalized content specifically to them that had exactly what they have and exactly what they could have. So basically, from a seat map with where your seats are, to here's options that are available if you would like to have a different seat view, to if you have this parking, but we'd like to get you closer to the gate that you go in, you could have this spot is open. Everything around enhancing that experience, and then also making sure that they're saving time for the rest of their team. All of that was automated, so their team could focus on the new things that they needed to sell.
So Jean-Marie, there have been many products which have been launched in recent times, which have actually filled a gap that we did not even know existed. And I think what you're just talking perhaps is also the story about the Madison Square Garden as a client, where you're talking about, at least from your website that I read, is talking about a client experience which is beyond the game day. Is this what you have in mind?
Yes.
And I think it is. So what I want to know is, you have given some examples, and we have seen some of those examples which are a little bit easier to digest in terms of how we are looking at it from a sports perspective.
Yep.
But are there lessons from sports industry into general other businesses along the same lines?
Absolutely. So I think Madison Square Garden is a great example. So in fact, they're near and dear to my heart because that was the last I took the meeting with them up in New York City to close their contract right before COVID broke out. So 2 weeks before COVID broke out, and then the garden was locked down for a couple of years, was when we closed our contract. So we've been together years now. But one of the lessons, so their sales team, they're a small team, but they are a mighty team. And so when you think about the types of impact they can have, for instance, we can see on our analytics that, for instance, when Billy Joel has his final concert at the Garden, they put together a digital presentation just for Mike Bloomberg. And it's all about this, the suite that is available just for him. So they can personalize, but also really bring to life the type of experience that someone can be investing in a way that you can't get that same experience with a piece of paper. You can't see, an example of the crowd from a previous concert. You can't, feel that experience, but you can with dynamic digital content.
Great. So, when every time when I took over as dean, everybody asked me, what are you seeing as opportunities and threats? And
Yep.
what I was mostly seeing are opportunities, right? So I'm going to pose that question to you. What are you seeing in the marketing field overall as threats? And in particular, I want to hear it from the angle of trying to understand on how we can prepare our students to be ready for those threats educationally.
So one thing I think is a threat, and it gets back to helping teams collaborate, is there is a lot of technology that sells itself without ever showing its actual technology. And so the threat that I see is ease of use. And I think it's incredibly important. So for instance, when I was in the tech industry, so I spent 15 years in the tech industry at Oracle, Microsoft, and MasterCard. When I was at Oracle, at the time, we wanted to have digital presentations for key clients. And part of the problem was that then at that point, you had to have a developer develop a custom content. Then it was locked down, you couldn't reuse it, and you couldn't edit it. So flash forward, today you have options like iFolio and even other options to be able to customize, edit, do it quickly. It doesn't take 3 weeks. But one of the challenges that I see is there are technologies that exist that will show the bells and whistles, but they are very, very hard to use. And they are still in the dark ages in terms of what we call legacy platforms. And so here's what I believe and what I know to be true. It can be as easy as building a PowerPoint presentation to build digital content. And it should be, and every platform that is in the space should make it that easy. The challenges I see is a lot of companies are adding features like, we can support HTML embeds, but if an everyday person tries to learn how to do that, they will be so frustrated, they will likely abandon. So one example is Salesforce Marketing Cloud has an average 7% utilization. Their solution is incredibly powerful. It's just not usable, and that matters. So I think it's really, really important for companies, and I would pose a challenge to companies. If you don't invest in usability and user experience, you are going to lose on the forefront of this digital transformation wave, and it's incredibly important. So quick little plug for iFolio, we have a 75% utilization, and I'm really proud of that, and we've invested deeply in making our solutions easy to use, even when we didn't have to. We could have slowed down. We keep investing in that because I think that is really important both for the industry, but also for the users.
So you, and from iFolio, you have so many different clients, so many different types of clients, right? So, and of course, you're using analytics. So I'm just trying to think about when you have a new client, is there like a whole set process on being able to design and help them in their marketing?
Yes.
What is that balance between analytics and creativity that you have to strike?
Yes, so there's a lot of work that goes into that, actually. So, for example, University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide is in contracting with iFolio right now. So when they close their contract, so they've finished that process, there is a whole program that we have designed that takes them from start to launch. And I would say that that program is something we've spent the most time on in the last 2 years. It used to be the program was, here's your login, here's your help center, you have a customer success person, you're off to the races. What we've seen is we really got into the race for utilization, and the way to stay at the front for utilization is you've got to hold people's hands a little bit more. So now we have a whole program where you have custom content set up for you, but the users are rolled onto the platform where custom templates are ready, so they can be sending their first email newsletter could be sent in 20 minutes that afternoon because of the setup. And then we hold their hands to, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. They have a UI, UX expert that is on demand for them, and it's helping them develop content that they didn't even know they could. We also put in front of them, here are examples from your peers. So, and we have to check out and make sure that we're able to share them, but one thing that keeps everyone on their toes is seeing examples of how they can innovate and be creative. And that's, I think, really helpful in that program.
Yeah. Great. So last time we talked, you talked about the champion mindset.
Yes.
I want to hear a little bit about that. And by the way, we are going to take some questions. So if you want to stand behind that mic and line up, I have so many questions, so I don't have to. But certainly, if you have some questions, please stand up, and we'll pick some from the audience.
Certainly. I think the mindset of a champion is incredibly important to think about, because the mindset of a champion is very focused not only when they are winning, but they're focused in ways so they will keep winning, and they are resilient. So we've talked about the resiliency, especially, so this year, companies have experienced more burnout than even the first year of COVID, which is shocking to me. But a great example is resiliency. How do you respond when you face setbacks? How do you respond when you're not first, when you're not at the top of the game, when you're experiencing challenges, or maybe even just you're a little fuzzy about what's the next great idea you should jump on? I really believe that how you respond to those challenges, how you come up with solutions in the midst of challenges, really shapes your overall mindset as a champion. I also believe that as champions, part of our legacy can be, how do we give back? So think about Scheller. For me, Scheller and Georgia Tech made a huge difference in my life. It set me on this trajectory. Where I came from, Brunswick, Georgia, there weren't any big tech companies that were founded in Brunswick, Georgia. You looked around, we have a port, we have a lot of construction. It's the Golden Isles are a great travel industry, a lot of tourism, but coming to Georgia Tech and even Scheller College of Business, which wasn't even Scheller at that time, put me on a trajectory to be able to be a leader in technology and do what I love doing. But I think it's incredibly important that each one of us can take challenges, how we respond to them is really, really instrumental in how we keep performing, and also how we give back is instrumental in the legacy that we leave.
It's a great point, and I like to say it like we always thought about IQ and EQ being very important, but it is the adversity quotient, or AQ, that is even more important than COVID has certainly proven during that time period. So, when you start as an entrepreneur, you started a company, you probably never really thought about a leader being a leader or leading something, or maybe you did, but over that period of time, what are some of the qualities that you have found have been very helpful in being an effective leader?
Yeah, that is a great question. So just to give you guys a little bit of context, I did not dream that I would be a CEO of a technology company. So I was 37 years old when I founded iFolio, and I had been looking for 5 years for another company to do what iFolio does. I was hoping to find the company and bring them back to what I was doing in the corporate world. So if I look at my own journey, I remember the very first day, and also I'll say a little bit about Atlanta in this as we get to what I think is important in shaping you as a leader. But I remember my first day coming home, I've launched this small business, and my neighbor says, "What's going on? What's the big fuss?" And I said, "Well, I've just started, that project I was working on for 5 years, we've just launched a small business." And he said, "What are you doing? What are you thinking?" 99% of small businesses go out of business in the first year. And that was sobering to hear that. flash forward 8.5 years, I'm so grateful to this city, this team, our partners, our corporate clients, and also the people that come through iFolio, that we've grown, that we're thriving, and that we continue to grow. But I think there's some elements that you wouldn't necessarily find. So for instance, I didn't know, there was nothing that prepared me for 5 minutes before you walk on stage at a digital marketing huge conference and you're going to be speaking. If your website gets hit by a brute force hack and they take your site down and the site is still at the end of your slide deck, the very last thing that you show, contact us, what decision should you make? Nothing prepared me for that. And so there's a little bit of stress, a little bit of frazzle. Let me just send a shout out to my dev team. I just stayed the path, which was either going to be disastrous or going to be fine, and they had the site back up by the time I got to that slide. No one knew. I knew this was a miracle. We have survived an attack and we have been victorious. But those are the types of things, nothing prepares you for that as a leader. Now that's a small, tiny item. I think one thing that's really important as a leader, there's the resilience, but there's also the vision. So you've got to have the vision to be able to know what's the right time to be building and then what's the right time to be scaling. And then how do you tap into the resources that will help you to get to that next level? Access to capital is a big one. So there's a lot of different forms of capital. There's a lot of different types. They all have different benefits, different values. At iFolio, so far we've been completely privately funded or customer revenue funded. So that's a harder approach. It's very different from a lot of entrepreneurs. And I think having the ability to assess capital, the cost of capital, the control that you give up, and then think ahead to each stage of the journey, that may not be the case for us forever. So I've got to be flexible enough to say, hey, what worked in the first 8 years may not be, everything may be on the table in the next decade, But I think as a leader, you're thinking about this year, 5 years, then 10 and 15 years. And you have different strategies for each one of those.
Wow, that's a lot packed into it. This is your last chance if you have a question from the audience. If I don't see anybody, then that will be it. I may have time for one question if you are planning to be asking that. But you are a proud Georgia Tech graduate.
Go Jackets.
And what advice do you give back to the alumni in giving back
Yes.
to Georgia Tech?
Yes.
And why is it that important?
I think, as a Georgia Tech community, we are very, very competitive. And, oftentimes you hear the stats, like how great the graduates from Georgia Tech are, what leaders they've become. We're very driven, very competitive. And it came from early on in classes, there would be this element. I even remember my professors, only 10 of you will get an A, even if you don't miss any questions. So it kind of created this sense of, oh my goodness, it's a very, cutthroat, got to compete to be at the very top. I think it's incredibly important to recognize the value of community. And this alumni base, this community is a very, very special thing. It's something that we've together, we have both overcome odds, but we've really leaned into learning. And part of recognizing community is giving back for the ones that come behind us. What is the legacy when you leave this world? What are the people that will be able to build that legacy behind you? And a great way to do that is giving back to the programs. And in my case, I was a scholarship student. So that's where I've got a lot of focus right now.
That's it. Well, I know we are going to be close to finishing time, but we have a couple of people standing. If we can take a couple of questions.
All right, so hi, Mike Skrinecki. I'm a double jacket from '88, so a little bit before you.
Awesome. Go Jackets.
I'm gonna try to weave a couple questions into one.
Okay.
So you refer to personalization and customization. You kind of weave back and forth. So can you describe the difference?
Yes.
And then how do you build scalability when you're doing that customization
Yes.
for such a wide variety of clients?
Yes.
And then how do you build, from a scalability, how do you monetize that? How do you make money?
Yes.
And last question.
These are all amazing questions.
And your last question is, who are you working with at Alabama? Because Tom Brooks is an alumni here, if you haven't met Tom.
Well, I haven't met Tom, but I would love to meet him. Okay. So that's fantastic. Let me start with the difference between customization and personalization. So think of personalization if you've ever received a birthday card or a handwritten note card. Someone has taken the time to write your name and to write something special to you. You treasure that. Like for me, I sometimes put it on the refrigerator. I keep it, it's something special. But it doesn't have to be dynamic. It might not have a lot of colors or a lot of content to it. It may just be a personalized message. So really the essence of personalization is how can you personalize content. So take something that is very much like a website that's available for everyone into an experience that's highly personalized for a specific person. Now customization is a whole different item. Customization is how easy is it to change things, edit things, design things. So for instance, with the iFolio platform, we spent a lot of engineering on having the ability to have 1,000 different media options. Now, I would love for the analytics to tell me if any of those media options have never been used, because there's a lot of energy. But we have so much content customization available. Now, you could customize content that's not personalized, so that'd be like a website, that's a public site. Or you could customize it and have it sent personalized in a PURL, which means a person receives their own portfolio that's private web, it's not able to be found on Google search, but it's specific to them, personalized with dynamic content. And it's hard to do that. So one of the ways that we do that is it needs to be as simple as building an email campaign, but yet you're crafting the content and what's going to be generated in these portfolios at scale. And we have sent out hundreds of thousands of them. So being able to scale means you've got to have a back end that is quite robust. So you've got to have investment in the latest engineering. So for instance, there's what we call a gigabyte of data. So iFolio has lots and lots of instances in our AWS cloud. One of our many, many instances has 48 gigabytes of data. That is 1.8 billion bytes of data. It is a massive amount of data. So you have to structure from the start to scale for enterprise, or else you'll have all that data in a central place, but it won't be able to be parsed down to individual teams, brands, and units. And so that's really where some of the magic comes in and a lot of the fierce engineering comes in. But that's how you scale. And then how we monetize that is also very similar to how Salesforce Marketing Cloud does. So it's a license, it's a SaaS-based license, and it's based on the services that our clients want. The whole concept around business units and microservices is really neat because you can have an organization like Georgia Tech, and they can have 26, which we have a Georgia Tech iFolio license, 26 different dedicated accounts with different teams, different content. But then you can add services only where you need to. So it's more economical. Not everyone needs all the same services. And so that helps to make it scale, make it more affordable in the long run.
Great. Let's have one more question, short question quickly, because we are out of time.
Hi.
Got you. Just a quick question. What have been the top 3 business advices that you have implemented into your business and that have had the most impact for you in iFolio?
Yes, I love it. So the question is, what are the top 3 items that I've implemented that have had the most effect for me and for iFolio? So the first one would be look at challenges as an opportunity. And that's one that we can all take. So for instance, the whole backstory of iFolio was I was at Oracle and I was working to facilitate these cutting edge digital content for our sales team. And the challenge was it was taking us so long to develop them. We had to hard code them. You couldn't reuse them. It was very frustrating. It was very expensive. But that challenge, leaning into it, was how do we solve that problem so that it's easier to do? So I would say my suggestion would be for anyone here, how do you take setbacks that you're facing or challenges? Now, not every challenge is something that you can innovate. So for instance, the traffic in Atlanta, you might be able to innovate when you drive, but there's certain items that you're going to be able to assess and understand, is this an area where you could drive some innovation? I think understand your why is incredibly important. For me, I am very driven by solving problems. I think that's very, it's a part of the Georgia Tech community. It's part of the engineering community. We assess problems. We're not flustered by them. We're intrigued by them. We want to analyze them. And so I think having your why, what motivates you, is really important. You got to keep that in front of you at all phases, whether you're an entrepreneur, but even as you work at other large companies. I'm a strong believer in that. I think the third thing that has been really valuable for iFolio is our focus on culture. And it's hard as a small business leader because it's easy to think, well, if I miss my numbers or I miss on these other areas, was I wrong to invest in this? Was this something I should have invested in? What I've grown to see is that our investment in culture, and for us, we have our core values and we do our team meetings in a very different way. So usually at Oracle, when I was working there, the big meetings was just the top guy talking to everyone. And we better know what they said, we better take notes, and we better be willing to move quickly. For us, we do a team meeting once a week, and we bring together the different teams that collaborate in the front office. And they collaborate in this meeting. And we're starting to see that we're seeing more creativity, and we're also seeing that work is being done more effectively, which helps to lighten the load on our team. But those would be the three.
Thank you, Jean Marie. What
Thank
a
you.
fantastic session.
Thanks.
It was so energizing.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Love being here.
Always fun talking to you. And thank you all for joining us today. I want to invite you to the next session of Tech Talks Business in the fall semester. On October 22nd, our next guest will be Chris Womack, Chairman, President, and CEO of Southern Company. I hope you can join us then. Thank you.
Thank you.